The late 19th century witnessed the rise of two powerful nationalist movements in Europe and the Middle East. These were Zionism, advocating for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and Arab nationalism, seeking independence from Ottoman rule. These movements, while seemingly separate, were destined to clash in the very land they both laid claim to. Zionism, fueled by anti-Semitism in Europe, saw Palestine as the historical and spiritual homeland of the Jewish people. Meanwhile, the Arab population of Palestine, under Ottoman rule for centuries, sought self-determination and an end to colonial influence. The stage for conflict was set. Two peoples, with deep-rooted historical and religious connections to the same land, found themselves on a collision course. The struggle for Palestine, once a distant dream for Zionists and a guaranteed homeland for its Arab inhabitants, was about to become a bloody reality. The following decades would witness wars, displacement, and countless attempts at peace, all stemming from this initial clash of aspirations. The seeds of conflict sown in the late 19th century would continue to bear bitter fruit for generations to come. The rivalry intensified in the early 20th century, particularly with the Balfour Declaration of 1917. This document, issued by the British government, promised support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, further fueling tensions with the Arab population. The declaration, while seemingly ambiguous, had far-reaching consequences. It emboldened the Zionist movement and paved the way for increased Jewish immigration to Palestine, much to the dismay of the Arab population, who felt their homeland was being gradually taken away. The Balfour Declaration, a testament to British imperial ambitions and miscalculations, remains a highly contentious document, seen by Palestinians as a betrayal and by Israelis as a foundational document in the creation of their state. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the League of Nations granted Great Britain a mandate over Palestine in 1920. Tasked with establishing a Jewish national home while safeguarding the rights of the existing Arab population, the British faced an impossible task. The mandate period witnessed a dramatic increase in Jewish immigration to Palestine, further inflaming tensions with the Arab population. The British, caught between their conflicting promises and facing growing unrest, struggled to maintain control. Arab resentment towards British rule and increased Jewish immigration culminated in the Arab Revolt of 1936 to 1939. This bloody uprising, brutally suppressed by the British, further deepened the divide between the two communities. The revolt, while ultimately unsuccessful, demonstrated the depth of Arab opposition to British rule and the growing Zionist enterprise. It also revealed the limitations of British power and the unsustainability of the mandate system. As World War II engulfed Europe, the situation in Palestine remained volatile, a powder keg awaiting a spark. In 1947, the United Nations proposed partitioning Palestine into independent Arab and Jewish states with Jerusalem under international control. This plan, while accepted by Jewish leaders, was rejected by Arab leaders who saw it as a further erosion of their rights. The UN partition plan, meant to be a solution, instead became a catalyst for war. With the British withdrawing from Palestine, the stage was set for a final showdown between Arabs and Jews. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared its independence, triggering an immediate invasion by neighboring Arab states. The ensuing conflict, known as the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, or the War of Independence, resulted in a decisive Israeli victory. The war had a profound impact on the demographics of the region. Over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, in what Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The war ended with armistice agreements in 1949, but the fundamental issues of land ownership, refugee return, and the status of Jerusalem remained unresolved. The decades following the 1948 war witnessed a series of conflicts and shifting alliances in the Middle East. The 1956 Suez Crisis saw Israel, in collusion with Britain and France, invade Egypt. The Six-Day War of 1967 resulted in a swift Israeli victory and the capture of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Golan Heights, and Sinai Peninsula. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, founded in 1964, gained prominence as the representative of the Palestinian people and launched a series of attacks against Israel. In 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel in the Yom Kippur War, hoping to regain territory lost in 1967. While Israel ultimately repelled the attack, the war had a profound impact on Israeli society and its perception of its own vulnerability. The Camp David Accords of 1978, brokered by US President Jimmy Carter, marked a turning point in Arab-Israeli relations. The accords led to a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, the first between Israel and an Arab state. This historic agreement, however, did little to resolve the Palestinian issue, which remained a major source of tension in the region. The late 1980s witnessed the eruption of the First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Section 5. A Glimmer of Hope, the Oslo Accords and its aftermath. The early 1990s brought a glimmer of hope with the signing of the Oslo Accords in 1993. These agreements, based on the principle of land for peace, saw mutual recognition between Israel and the PLO and the establishment of the Palestinian Authority to govern parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The Oslo Accords, hailed as a breakthrough at the time, raised hopes for a lasting peace based on a two-state solution. However, key issues such as the status of Jerusalem, Palestinian refugees' right of return, and Israeli settlement activity remained unresolved. The assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin by a Jewish extremist in 1995 dealt a severe blow to the peace process. The Second Intifada, a more violent Palestinian uprising, erupted in 2000 following the collapse of peace negotiations and the provocative visit of Ariel Sharon, then Israeli opposition leader, to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Second Intifada, characterized by suicide bombings and Israeli military incursions, resulted in thousands of casualties on both sides and further hardened attitudes. It also led to the construction of the separation barrier between Israel and the West Bank. Section 6. Gaza, a prison with open wounds. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew its settlers and troops from the Gaza Strip while maintaining control over its borders, airspace, and territorial waters. This move, while presented as a step towards peace, left Gaza economically strangled. The victory of Hamas, considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States, and the European Union in the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections, further complicated matters. Hamas's takeover of Gaza in 2007, after a brief but bloody civil war with the Fatah-dominated PA, led to the imposition of a crippling blockade by Israel and Egypt. The blockade, ostensibly aimed at preventing Hamas from importing weapons, has had a devastating impact on the civilian population of Gaza, severely restricting the movement of people and goods and exacerbating the already dire humanitarian situation. Section 7. Fractured Peace. The Abraham Accords and escalating violence. The past decade has witnessed a series of devastating conflicts between Israel and Hamas, each leaving a trail of death and destruction in Gaza. Operation Cast Lead in 2008 to 2009, Operation Pillar of Defense in 2012, and Operation Protective Edge in 2014 resulted in thousands of Palestinian casualties, mostly civilians, and widespread damage to infrastructure. These conflicts, while achieving limited military objectives, did little to address the root causes of the conflict, and only served to deepen the cycle of violence and hatred. In a surprising turn of events, 2020 saw the signing of the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, followed by Sudan and Morocco. These agreements, brokered by the Trump administration, were praised by Israel and its allies as a historic breakthrough towards peace in the Middle East. However, critics argued that the accords, while achieving a diplomatic victory for Israel, did little to address the Palestinian issue and risked further sidelining the Palestinians. Section 8. The crushing reality of 2024. In 2023, tensions boiled over once again, fueled by long-standing grievances, inflammatory rhetoric, and provocative actions on both sides. What began as a series of clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police in Jerusalem quickly escalated into a full-blown war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. The conflict, the deadliest in years, resulted in a horrifying loss of life and widespread destruction in Gaza. As of February 2025, the situation remains dire. The peace process is non-existent, with both sides deeply entrenched in their positions. The international community appears powerless to break the stalemate. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is worsening by the day, with hospitals overwhelmed, essential supplies dwindling, and the population traumatized by relentless violence. The international community, while condemning the violence, has been unable to find a lasting solution. The two-state solution, once seen as the only viable option, appears increasingly distant. Section 9. An uncertain future. The path forward. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a complex and multifaceted tragedy with a long and bloody history. Despite countless attempts at peace, the two sides remain locked in a seemingly intractable struggle. The path forward is fraught with challenges. The two-state solution, while still advocated by many, appears increasingly unrealistic given the current political climate and the growth of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. A lasting solution requires a fundamental shift in attitudes and a willingness to compromise on both sides. It demands an end to violence, a commitment to dialogue, and a recognition of the other's legitimate aspirations. The international community has a crucial role to play in facilitating dialogue, providing humanitarian assistance, and holding both sides accountable for their actions. The alternative is a bleak future of continued violence, suffering, and instability, not only for Israelis and Palestinians, but for the entire region.